The machine gun is so hot it's blistering Tony Stein's hands through his gloves. But he can't stop firing, because the moment he does, 250 Marines behind him are dead men. He's been shooting for 11 minutes straight, the barrel glowing red in the volcanic dust. And the Japanese are 30 yards away and closing. His ammunition bearer is face down in the black sand with half his skull gone. The rest of his squad is pinned in a crater 200 yards back. And Tony Stein, a 23-year-old tool and die maker from Dayton, Ohio, is absolutely, certifiably out of his goddamn mind. Because he's not retreating. He's not even staying put. He's moving forward. You need to understand something about Tony Stein before February 19th, 1945. He wasn't supposed to be a hero. He was supposed to be dead already. He'd enlisted in the Marine Corps in September 1942 at 20 years old, after Pearl Harbor turned his quiet life in Dayton upside down. Before the war, he'd worked at a tool and die shop, precise, technical work that required steady hands and a mind for mechanics. His buddies said he could fix anything: a carburetor, a broken lathe, a jammed Browning machine gun. It was the last skill that would matter on Iwo Jima. By the time Tony made corporal, he'd already survived Guadalcanal and Bougainville with the 1st Parachute Battalion. Survived isn't really the right word. He'd excelled. The kind of Marine who volunteered for point, who stayed calm when mortars started dropping, who other men wanted in their foxhole. When the Para-Marines were disbanded in 1944, he transferred to Company A, 1st Battalion, 28th Marines, 5th Marine Division, the unit that would land on the western beaches of Iwo Jima, right below Mount Suribachi. But Tony had a problem with Marine Corps issue weapons, specifically the Browning automatic rifle. Good weapon, sure. But in Tony's hands, it wasn't good enough. So he did what any self-respecting tool and die maker would do. He built his own. He'd scavenged a .50 caliber aircraft machine gun from a wrecked Navy fighter, an AN-M2 Browning, and spent weeks in the machine shop modifying it. Shortened the barrel, rigged a custom trigger mechanism, fabricated a bipod and a makeshift stock, added a custom carrying handle. The result was a weapon that weighed about 30 pounds, fired 600 rounds per minute, and could punch through a coconut log at 300 yards. His squad called it Stinger. The armory sergeant called it an unauthorized abortion of Navy property. But nobody could argue with results, and after Tony used it to clear 3 pillboxes on Bougainville, command looked the other way. On Iwo Jima, Tony would carry the Stinger, a .45 pistol, and a satchel of demolition charges. His ammunition bearer, Private First Class Merritt M. Savage from Arkansas, would haul 300 rounds of linked .50 caliber in canvas belts. The two of them had trained together for months. Savage was 19, quiet, and could change an ammo belt in under 6 seconds while lying prone under fire. The night before the landing, February 18th, the men of Company A sat on the deck of USS Missoula, cleaning weapons and trying not to think too hard. You could see Iwo Jima in the distance, a black pork-chop-shaped island, 8 square miles of volcanic ash and death. The Navy had been bombarding it for 3 days straight. 16-inch shells from battleships, dive bombers. The island looked like the surface of the moon, cratered and smoking. "Think anything's still alive over there?" Savage asked, threading a belt through his hands. Tony was field stripping the Stinger for the 4th time that day. "Yeah," he said. "I think everything's alive over there." The scuttlebutt said the island would fall in 4 days. 5, tops. Intelligence estimated 13,000 Japanese defenders. The actual number was 21,000, dug into 11 miles of tunnels, caves, and reinforced bunkers. But the Marines boarding the Higgins boats at 6:30 on February 19th didn't know that yet. They would learn soon enough. At 8:30, Tony Stein stepped off the ramp of his landing craft into 3 feet of cold Pacific water and slogging hell. The first thing that hits you on Iwo Jima isn't the enemy. It's the sand. Black volcanic ash, fine as powder, steep as a snowbank. Every step you take, you sink 6 inches. The loose terraces slope up from the waterline at a 45-degree angle. You're carrying 70 pounds of gear. Your boots find no purchase. You claw forward on your hands and knees, and the ash gets in your nose, your mouth, the action of your rifle. Tony makes it 20 yards inland before the Japanese open up. They've been waiting, holding fire through the naval bombardment, through the first wave of Marines struggling up the beach. And now, with 2,000 men bunched on the terraces like cattle in a pen, the killing starts. Machine gun fire from concealed pillboxes on the slopes. Mortar shells dropping with metronomic precision into the clusters of Marines. Artillery from positions inland that the Navy bombardment somehow missed. The sound is constant, overlapping, a wall of noise that makes communication impossible. Men are screaming, but you can't hear them over the gunfire. Tony watches a Marine 5 feet to his left stand up to run forward. The man's chest explodes, a burst of 3 rounds from somewhere upslope. He drops face first into the ash and doesn't move. Move up the beach. That's Lieutenant Edward Pennell, Company A's commander, shouting orders nobody can properly hear. The plan, such as it was, is to push inland, secure the western beaches, and swing south towards Suribachi. But the company is pinned. Can't advance, can't retreat. Just dig into the ash and pray. Tony doesn't dig in. He spots the muzzle flash. A Japanese Type 92 heavy machine gun firing from a reinforced pillbox 60 yards upslope. The position is dug into the terrace, surrounded by volcanic rock, with a firing slit barely 2 feet wide. It's chewing through Marines, traversing left and right, methodical and efficient. Savage, on me. Tony charges upslope, stinger cradled in his arms. Savage follows, humping the ammo belts. The ash makes it almost impossible. 3 steps forward, slide 2 steps back. But Tony keeps his eyes on that muzzle flash and drives his legs like pistons. The Japanese gunner sees him coming, swings the barrel toward this lunatic Marine running straight at him. But Tony drops prone at 40 yards, mounts the stinger on its bipod, and opens fire. The .50 caliber rounds hit like hammets. Concrete chips explode around the firing slit. The Japanese gunner tries to adjust, but Tony is walking his fire into the opening, systematic, professional. He's done this before. 10 seconds. 20. The pillbox goes silent. Tony, behind you. Savage's warning saves his life. Tony rolls left as a Japanese soldier emerges from a spider hole 10 feet away, bayonet fixed. The man lunges. Tony draws his .45 and fires twice. The soldier drops. But now they're exposed. 3 more spider holes open up, camouflaged one-man fighting positions dug into the ash, and suddenly it's close quarters chaos. Savage shoots one Japanese soldier at point-blank range. Tony clubs another with the stinger's barrel, then shoots a third who's trying to throw a grenade. The grenade rolls into the ash and explodes, throwing up a geyser of black sand. They're alive. The pillbox is dead. And behind them, Company A is moving again. This is when Tony should pull back, regroup, let somebody else take point. But he sees the next problem. Another machine gun nest, 80 yards further up, raking the Marines trying to advance. And beyond that, a mortar position dropping shells onto the beach. He looks at Savage. You good? Savage is breathing hard, eyes wide, but he nods. I'm good. Then let's go. For the next 15 minutes, Tony Stein becomes a one-man wrecking crew. He moves upslope in bounds, sprint, drop, fire, sprint again. The Stinger overheats after the first 100 rounds, and he has to stop. Pour water from his canteen onto the barrel. Steam hisses into the air. Japanese soldiers are firing at him from multiple positions now. Bullets snap past his head. One round hits his pack and detonates a smoke grenade. Purple smoke billows around him. He keeps moving. He hits the second pillbox with the Stinger, suppressing it long enough to get close. Then he drops the gun, pulls a satchel charge from his belt, and throws it through the firing slit. The explosion blows the steel door off its hinges. By now, other Marines are following him. PFC Donald J. Rule from Montana, Sergeant Henry O. Hansen from Massachusetts, a squad from 2nd Platoon. They're leapfrogging upslope, using Tony's suppressive fire to advance. Every time he knocks out a position, they surge forward another 20 yards. But the Japanese aren't retreating. They're dying in place, fighting from positions they've spent months fortifying. Tony clears a trench and finds 3 dead Japanese soldiers, their weapons still loaded. He clears a cave entrance and takes fire from deeper inside. The tunnels honeycomb the entire island. You can't see how deep they go. Savage goes down at the 11-minute mark. They're assaulting the mortar position when the Japanese counterattack from a concealed tunnel entrance. 6 soldiers, bayonets fixed, screaming. Tony spins the Stinger and fires, drops 3. But the 4th soldier shoots Savage in the head from 10 feet away. Savage falls without a sound, the ammo belts spilling into the ash. Tony kills the shooter, kills the man behind him. The last Japanese soldier retreats into the tunnel. For 3 seconds, Tony Stein stands there, Stinger smoking, looking at Savage's body. The kid from Arkansas who could change an ammo belt in 6 seconds, who'd followed him up this godforsaken hill without hesitation. Then he picks up the ammo belts, hooks them to his own gear, and keeps moving. The mortar position is a concrete bunker with a steel-reinforced roof. Tony can't get an angle with the Stinger, so he runs straight at it, 100 yards of open ground with Japanese rifles firing at him from elevated positions. He doesn't know how he's not hit. Maybe luck. Maybe the volcanic dust obscuring sight lines. Maybe God isn't finished with him yet. He reaches the bunker, pulls his last satchel charge, stuffs it into the ventilation duct, and runs. The explosion lifts the entire roof 3 feet into the air. Flame and smoke pour from the entrance. When the dust clears, Company A has advanced 200 yards inland. The beach is secure enough for reinforcements to land. The western terrace is in Marine hands. Tony Stein collapses against a shell crater, Stinger across his lap, hands raw and bleeding. He's been on Iwo Jima for 45 minutes. They find Tony sitting there, methodically cleaning the Stinger's barrel with a rag. His uniform is shredded. His face is black with volcanic ash and powder burns. There's blood on his hands, some his, some not. He's shaking, though whether from adrenaline or exhaustion or delayed shock, he can't say. Lieutenant Pennell drops into the crater beside him. Stein. Jesus Christ, Stein. Tony doesn't look up. Savage is dead. I know. He was 19. I know. Pennell puts a hand on Tony's shoulder. Around them, Marines are digging in, establishing a defensive perimeter, treating wounded. A Navy corpsman is working on a Marine who took shrapnel to the leg. Another Marine is sitting in the ash, staring at nothing, rifle forgotten beside him. The count comes in over the next hour. Company A has taken 30% casualties in the first wave. Killed in action, 17 Marines. Wounded, 43. Missing, 4, probably dead in the surf or buried in collapsed bunkers. But they've secured the beachhead, the Japanese machine gun positions that would have slaughtered hundreds as they landed. Silenced. The mortar positions that had perfect enfilade on the beach, destroyed. The follow-up waves are landing under sporadic fire instead of systematic murder. Lieutenant Pennell does the math in his head. 250 Marines in the follow-up waves came ashore in the sector Tony cleared. Without his assault, they'd have landed in a kill zone. Most would have died before reaching the terrace. By nightfall, they've recovered Savage's body. Also PFC Rule, killed by a grenade while clearing a bunker. Also Corporal Robert L. Leader from New York, shot through the chest while following Tony's advance. The dead are laid in a row on the beach, ponchos over their faces, their rifles stuck in the sand, helmets on top. Somebody will collect their dog tags tomorrow. Tony sits with Savage's body for a while. The kid's face is covered, but Tony remembers it. Young, serious, a little gap between his front teeth. He'd shown Tony a picture of his girlfriend once, a girl from Little Rock with dark hair. Tony wonders if she knows yet. Probably not. The telegram won't arrive for weeks. That night, dug into a foxhole with 2 other Marines, Tony can't sleep. Every time he closes his eyes, he sees Savage falling. Sees the Japanese soldier in the spider hole, bayonet first. Sees the muzzle flash of the machine gun that nearly killed him. He checks the Stinger for the 100th time, cleans it again, counts his remaining ammunition. He's got maybe 100 rounds left. He'll need more tomorrow, because tomorrow they attack Mount Suribachi. The strategic picture emerges over the next few days. Intelligence had been wrong about everything. The island isn't lightly defended. It's the most heavily fortified position in the Pacific. The Japanese haven't been weakened by the naval bombardment. They've been underground, waiting. And the 4-day operation? It'll take 36 days. Nearly 7,000 Americans will die here. 20,000 will be wounded. But on February 19th, in those first 15 minutes, one Marine with a modified machine gun and no regard for his own survival changed the math for Company A. Lieutenant Pennell will write in his after-action report, Corporal Stein's actions were instrumental in securing the western beach and preventing catastrophic casualties during subsequent landing waves. His courage under fire was extraordinary. The official language doesn't capture it. It doesn't capture Savage's death or the smell of cordite and volcanic dust, or the sound Tony's hands made when he finally took off his gloves and saw the blisters. It doesn't capture the kid from Dayton who built a gun in a machine shop and then used it to save 250 men he'd never meet. Here's what the Medal of Honor citation doesn't tell you. Tony Stein survived that first day, but he wouldn't survive Iwo Jima. For 3 weeks, he kept fighting, kept clearing bunkers with that modified Stinger, kept volunteering for the most dangerous assignments. On March 1st, he took out 2 more pillboxes. On March 3rd, he led a squad through a minefield to rescue wounded Marines. He was wounded twice, shrapnel in the leg, a bullet through the hand, and refused evacuation both times. On March 6th, Company A was ordered to secure Hill 362A on the northern part of the island. Japanese resistance was fanatical. Marines were dying in dozens trying to take fortified positions that had overlapping fields of fire. Tony Stein volunteered to take point. Again. He was directing his squad's fire when a Japanese sniper shot him through the heart. He died instantly. He was 23 years old. He'd been a Marine for 2 years, 4 months, and 17 days. The Medal of Honor would be awarded posthumously on May 26, 1945. His mother, Rose Stein, would receive it at a ceremony in Dayton. The citation would read, "For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty." It would detail the events of February 19th. The pillboxes destroyed, the positions cleared, the hundreds of Marines whose lives he saved. What it couldn't detail was the cost. Not just Tony's life, but Savage's, Rule's, Leader's. The 30% of Company A that died in the first week. The toll that Iwo Jima exacted from every man who fought there. Because here's the truth about that 15-minute stand. It worked. It saved lives. It secured the beachhead. But it also reveals something uncomfortable about combat that the history books often gloss over. Victory on Iwo Jima wasn't won by brilliant strategy or overwhelming firepower. It was won by young men, kids, really, doing impossible things because someone had to, and they happened to be there. Tony Stein wasn't a superhero. He was a tool and die maker who knew how to fix things, and when he got to Iwo Jima and saw the problem, a beachhead being slaughtered by Japanese fire, he fixed it the only way he knew how. With violence, courage, and a gun he'd built himself. The modified Stinger was recovered after Tony's death and sent back to the States for analysis. The Navy's Bureau of Ordnance studied it, marveled at the craftsmanship, and quietly filed it away. As far as anyone knows, it's still in storage somewhere, gathering dust. A weapon that saved hundreds of lives and died with the man who made it. There's a memorial in Dayton now, in the town square. Tony's name is on it, along with other local boys who died in the war. On Memorial Day, someone always leaves flowers. Sometimes a small American flag. Most people walking by don't know the story, don't know about the beach, the volcanic ash, the 15 minutes that changed everything for Company A. But the Marines who were there knew. The guys in the follow-up waves who landed on a beach that Tony had cleared, they knew. Some of them made it home, got married, had kids, grew old, lived the lives that Tony and Savage and Rule never got to live. In 1995, on the 50th anniversary of Iwo Jima, a group of Company A veterans returned to the island. They stood on the western beach, now quiet, peaceful, covered in memorial plaques, and someone mentioned Tony's name. One of the men, a former PFC who'd landed in the third wave, started crying. He was 70 years old. He said, "I never met him, but he's the reason I'm standing here." That's the legacy, not the medal or the memorial or the official reports. The legacy is the men who lived because Tony Stein decided, in the space between one heartbeat and the next, that some things are worth dying for. On Iwo Jima, on February 19, 1945, in 15 minutes of sustained madness and courage, a tool and die maker from Dayton proved it. The black volcanic sand still blows across that beach. The pillboxes are crumbling now, reclaimed by time and weather. But somewhere in the ash, if you knew where to look, you might find a spent .50 caliber casing, one of thousands that Tony Stein fired that day. Evidence of a moment when one man stood between death and 250 futures and refused to move.